Guys, we go. Welcome. Welcome to this week's Hot Seat tonight. My name is Derek Wandera. I'm going to be taking you through this episode as host. I have a very exuberant and very vibrant panel tonight. I shall be handling quite many topics, and it's that Friday where I get panelists and pundits and journalists particularly to discuss the topical issues of the day. Quite an avalanche of topics here. Political party readiness for the Road 2026 concerns arise from the NRM primaries. Of course, they released their roadmap and campaign and campaign something, whatever it's going to be. And Isaac Kayonde is here to help us understand some of those things because he's coming right from that camp. And the PFF accuses the Electoral Commission of delaying their registration as a tactic to whatever is coming up for the 2026. DP is set for the National Delegates Conference on the 30th of March, and NUP blocked again from holding their mobilization campaigns across town. Today, I want to take you to the first topic, but before I do that, I want to introduce to you my panel. I have Jimmy Achelam, a very ardent and biggest follower and panelist on this show. You're welcome, Jimmy.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks for having me.
I have, of course, yes.
Good Friday.
It's a good Friday. It's a good Friday. It's a good Friday, and I hope people have enjoyed their Way of the Cross. People like Isaac Kayonde from Gomba. I don't know whether he has gone for the Way of the Cross, but his attire really is telling because it's short, and I want to imagine he has been doing some exercise carrying the cross for the people of Gomba. Have you?
Of course, I didn't carry it in Gomba, but I'm a practicing Anglican.
Practicing.
You are at All Saints or
All Saints. They walked from walked from All Saints to Namirembe. Yeah, the Way of the Cross is.
Did you really walk, or you are watching on TV?
No.
It's symbolism.
Yeah, it's symbolism. I was there, and then, but I didn't do the journey. But I was at the church.
Okay, veteran journalist and a very. I named him in one of the articles that's going to be published on Sunday as a social media enthusiast. Timothy Kalijira is with us in studio. Welcome, and it has been a minute on the show.
Thank you. Good evening. That's a lousy description. Social media enthusiast. That's everyone. That's everyone on TikTok, Facebook. That's the whole world.
Every day.
That's
for me, why I call you the
amateurish reporting.
For me, I think calling you an enthusiast,
maybe expert,
because it goes deep into analyzing some of the things. Other than someone just coming to post and stuff like that, for you go and try to analyze how many people are on Twitter today. I think the number has dropped in the last minute, and just in the coming minute, we expect that we are going to have more numbers short of what you see.
So as Jimmy said, the E word is expert, not enthusiast.
But let me call the editor to change
the one is known for its amateur writers, so no surprise. Anyway,
no, that's not what I called you. I am sorry. Withdraw that one. I have withdrawn mine.
One edit the thing.
All right. So we are going to begin this show today with the political parties and their readiness to the 2026 elections. The NRM yesterday released their roadmap, and I was talking to some of the leaders of the NRM, and they're telling me they are right now doing the digitization of the register, the party register, and of course they are going to give us accurate. I hope, because the last time they did, they told us they have about 18.5 million registered party members. That is way beyond the people.
20 million now.
Well, so 20 million, maybe a way beyond the number of registered voters as of EC. DP is going to hold their delegates conference on the 30th of May, and and FDC is doing so much internal restructuring, internal preparations. I know they are struggling to get who should be the flag bearer, and probably with time they are going to be able to do that. When you go to PFF, they are saying the Electoral Commission is sabotaging their preparations for the 2026 elections, and because they wanted to have a candidate they are in, but then they haven't finished the entire process of registration, and they are saying these delays are illegal. Of course, I've talked to the Electoral Commission, and the Electoral Commission says they are way within time because of what's provided within the mandate of the Electoral Commissions Act, and of course, NUP has been stopped, just as you'd expect, after their successful tour to meet some of the leaders in Mbale. They were supposed to cross to the west, and then to the north and meet all the grassroots leaders. But I know, and I've seen a letter from police cancelling their movements. And this is where it always gets mad, that now NUP is going to force themselves into the field, and they're going to meet the enchanted security, and it's going to be a little very dangerous and chaotic out there. So let's just try to dig deep into this whole situation that's happening right today and right about now. Isaac, I want you to update me on what you people are doing within the NRM, and where you are now, and how that is forming up to the 2026 elections. I know there is a bigger waiting that you're waiting for in Gomba, and so many other places are waiting for that. Not particularly that, but in their own places. Yeah. How is it forming up? How is it coming?
Well, it's a very tricky thing. Not everybody in NRM really knows what's happening in NRM. That's just to give you that disclaimer. But according to the roadmap, it seems like the activities are getting into high gear, I think, by the end of this month. Actually, I think the roadmap talks about people expressing interest at the lower levels, LC1 flag bearers of NRM. You know. So the activities, I think, are ongoing. There has been very little sensitization about what's happening. The register, you know, NRM, we have a problem, you know.
So you concede? I
concede. We have a problem with public relations. We have a problem with perception. We have a problem with
human rights.
No. We have a problem. Yeah, you know, corruption and all those things that bedevil the country, of course, beyond NRM. So, when you look at the
NRM
numbers,
is actually a problem.
No. Every institution has its own challenges. Okay. I mean, and just like you know, the Nation Media Group also has its own issues.
Well, I don't know that. We don't want to discuss that.
No, we can't. But what I'm saying is that there are many gaps. You know, the figures that are being thrown around. I said, okay, even me as an NRM person, if you tell me that our register has 20 million, that means that the entire electoral voter register is full of NRM people. You know. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you're saying you have 20 million supporters and only 6 million vote from President Museveni, then, you know, where are the 15 million? So the same thing that happened in Kawempe, you have a register there of over 200,000 or 300,000, and you get less than 15,000 votes. So some of these things, I think communication and truthfulness to the party will help us, you know, be better. But all in all is that the things are happening. I think the biggest thing that people are waiting for are the nominations for the parliamentary seats. Those should be happening in June. Mid-June, the nomination begin. for the party, and then the election for the candidates is I think around July 16th. I think that's where the main focus is, and I think that's where the fights will come. The period they have given us is very short, like in between nomination and election. It's very short. So I think, but the general mood I feel is that people are. There's a slowness in the economy, so the money seems to be not flowing, as candidates are being very cautious on how they are spending their money. So the activity is ongoing, but it's the uptake has been a bit slow. Yeah, pretty much that is what is happening. We expect that going forward, the other parties can get involved into this. I haven't seen the other roadmap for PFF or NUP, or they haven't produced their roadmaps as clear as what NRM has done. Other than telling us the fees.
Maybe they want to avoid the 20 million as well.
I mean, theirs is less. I mean, if
they have,
I think 6 million.
Yes, NUP is 10 million. Yeah.
NUP is 10 million. I mean, this money thing is.
If NRM has 20, NUP has 10 million.
That is 30.
No, 30. No. Don't calculate it the way they published it.
By the way, by virtue of
you can't stand in NRM and then stand in NUP. So it can't be that you can accumulate.
Some people like registering in two parties. And
by virtue of the figures that were shared to the media and what we've accessed, they are more registered party members than Ugandans.
And the population on the last
census. That's on
every party.
Yes.
There are more registered voters in different political parties. So maybe some are coming from Kenya, my homeland, others
curious.
From Rwanda.
I'm curious to know what is NUP saying.
They have 10 million.
They have 10 million
registered members. Yes.
Okay.
So I want to come to you, Tim. In the wake of all these revelations in terms of numbers and whatever is coming up for the 2026 elections, and what we've seen in NRM already hiking the prices of the registration fees for different positions, presidency, chairmanship, and MPship. What is this telling about the preparedness of Uganda for the 2026 election?
Well, I guess one of the things that it's telling us is that this hole left in Ugandan society, budget-wise and project-wise, by USAID, wasn't just theory. It really has left some gap, and which the Uganda government must start to fill. All those social services, which then explain why there's going to be a lot of this, tightening of the finances. And I guess now you can see that. So the economy isn't doing well. It wasn't doing well anyway. It always has been struggling. COVID-19 created that crisis. We'd barely come out of the crisis. And then the pulling out of USAID. I don't know if you remember, or you can check, in 2017 when the US Embassy published this report, our report to the Ugandan people, when they explained all the projects they do in Uganda. I wrote something in the Sunday Monitor the following week and said, exactly what does the Ugandan government do? From UPDF to orphans, HIV programs, coffee, seeds, wildlife conservation, I don't know whether. Basically, everything the government of Uganda does is what you said was done. So that is the financial side. In terms of the stakes, well, they're going to be quite high, although I still don't understand why we failed to understand the Olaro Tunu question of 2010. If you people say this is a dictatorship, if this is a rigged system, if you've seen all this pattern since 2001 with Besigye, allegations of rigging, petition at the High Court, the judges say yes, there was rigging, but did not substantially affect the result ever. What's this thing about going for the 2026 election? So the opposition, I think, needs to deal with that contradiction. What will be different in 2026 from 2016, 11, and 21 is the question.
Thank you. Let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we return, we shall pick it up from there with KFM. Welcome back from the quick commercial break. My name is Derek Wandera. I'm still hosting the hot seat, where I have journalists and panelists to discuss the topical issues of the day and the week. I have in the house Jimmy, I have Isaac and Tim, who are helping us delve into some of the issues that we are talking about today. I was coming to you, Jimmy, about this whole thing, the fracas. NUP blocked from their, as expected, from their countrywide mobilization activities. And NRM, you know, President Museveni has moved across this entire country, monitoring
PDM.
Don't tell people what I'm doing. Monitoring PDM, and now NUP has been stopped, and FDC. I mean PFF is complaining about not being registered because they think that the Electoral Commission is fearing their energy with which they come to the PFF, so what does this mean?
PFF starts with, you know where Dr. Besigye is? He's in prison. So you first get hold of him. He's the leader. He's like the brain, the one who thinks. So if he's a threat, you first demobilize
the others in PPF don't think?
No. It's like the top. At the helm is Dr. Besigye. He's the one, you know, he moved from
he's their face, but when he's
the one who started that Katonga he's the one who moved there, and then the people followed him. So if you're a thinker, then obviously they'll say, how do we get hold of these people? First, reject registration, make it very hard. You know, up to now, it's not legally a party. They've been trying. Last October, the EC said, "Oh, it's ready for registration," and then they started dilly-dallying their games because they know. Same with NUP. If you are seen to be a serious threat or the political party that gives them headache, they'll make your life hard. They'll not make it easy for you. So, of course, NUP will expect that going forward, that up to their roadmap and everything will be interfered with. They are not going to have it easy. But the option of saying that if we are going through all this, then why do we go for elections? The team posed that, Ambassador Otono. So it's what the government wants. You give up so that it's a soft landing for them. If you say we cannot, participate in this thing, you think for them they'll say, okay, let us sit back and reflect on how to make it fair. The ruling party doesn't think about fairness. Fairness is not in their game. So NUP will encounter challenges because of its popularity, and it's not going to be. They have to be thinking of ways how to counter that. It's not going to be an easy. It's not going to be an easy thing, and I don't know about PFF what will happen eventually, but all those are calculated things. It's not just out of. It's calculated to make life easy for the one who goes for monitoring PDM. When actually he's already campaigning, the one who sends the vice president, go and deliver this on my promises. So, of course, those are unfair advantages. But then you don't give in. You don't say, oh, we are not going to participate because of this. You just try what you can do. It's tough. It's not easy.
Just to interject a bit, I mean, for me, the argument that President Museveni is campaigning...
Is it not?
It's possible, but it's not plausible in my context. He's the president. He has a program running. Question is, does PDM exist? Yes. Was he championing it? Yes. Was it a promise? Yes. So if he goes around the country trying to implement, and you have seen these pictures when he's going to these people's farms, you've seen the pictures where he's looking at a one goat, two goats, and everything. If I am thinking,
the question is why now?
The issue isn't why, when the term is still going on. It is a question of he has a mandate of 5 years. So whether he chooses to do it in the first year or the second or the third, it should be around his schedule. So for me, I'm saying, look. You can say all you want to say about the campaign, the early campaign or what. He is the president. He has a program that he introduced. He's trying to supervise it.
And the others are also citizens.
So do you want them to allow NUP to go? No. Do you want allow NUP to go to supervise parish development model?
No, you should allow. Because
I'll give you an example.
These parish development models are for citizens.
Yes.
And if citizens are taking
let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of people who say, now, NUP in the Kawempe elections had the biggest rally in that election, by far, right? Now, at what point do you say, okay, NUP has refused to campaign?
No, I think they didn't say that, did they?
No, I mean, this is what you're saying. This is what Jimmy is saying. That, look, they have been to numerous, they have opened offices, right? So for me, it's a thing of saying, okay, fine, we know one thing for sure, government is going to try and control the NUP's activities, because there's also a thin line there between running an early campaign, right, and consultation, right? And it's across the board, whether it is NRM or...
No, NRM does, they do the party does, the activities go on without any interference.
You see, that's
nobody stops. Have you heard of an NRM rally being stopped, or the activities anywhere being, the police says, please stop? They're the ruling party. So nobody interferes in what they do.
I want to bring Tim in here to try to help us understand the thing of early campaigns. It's for crying out loud, a few months to November, when there should be nominations. And for anyone who hasn't been mobilizing, you can't wake up on say the 13th of November and you say, now I'm the candidate because I've not been campaigning. What's this whole fuss around early campaigns and the illegality and the legality that surrounds it?
Well, first of all, if you've noticed the last, I guess, 3 years or so, the economy is becoming tight and tight, as I just said earlier, but also because of so many things which I can summarize quickly as the disruption, the shift underway in the global economy. You notice how many people from journalism are running for parliament, musicians, where, when the economy was rising and booming in the 1990s, you left government service, boring, poorly paid, to go to the private sector. When the private sector starts, when the economy is doing well, that's what usually happens. When the economy is doing badly, people leave the private sector, start heading to the government. So it's now becoming lucrative. I mean, for all these musicians, the other day I had on one of his radio stations, even Nina Ross was like, so tell us, are you going to run or not? Well, if the people, say they want me. So it's like, reason being, well, quickly, it is that music no longer sells in hard copy. It's just streamed and all that. They don't make much money. It's just endless concert tours. So the only real, what you call lucrative income left in Uganda now, easy, nearly free money, although of course it's tied to the voters and all that, is parliament. So because of it, the stakes are so high, as you saw in Kawempe, and it's going to get higher and higher. Everybody is just clamoring for politics. It's as the only remaining wide margin place for people to make, quote-unquote, a decent living. So that explains why it's getting closer and closer. We're starting early and early. Barely had last election ended, then we began the MP to be, 2026 to whatever. So that's what you see now with the pressure. So the financial side of it is what's going to make this election almost resemble the Kenyan types, when it's really like nearly life or death. And that's why you saw somebody collapsing in Kawempe when he wasn't given the
Moses in
So that's the answer to it. You have very little chance. You're borrowing so much money for the campaigns. The earlier, the better. The field is crowded. And yes, you can't wait for the day itself or the 2 or 3 weeks before. You must start doing this as soon as you can.
It's actually very, very surprising. 2 weeks ago, I wrote a story about the number of journalists who are leaving the newsroom to the political, elective politics, and 36 of them have left. And when I wrote that story, actually, I received zillions of calls of journalists up country and wherever saying, please, can you also include me? Why didn't you include me? And that's so revealing that, hey, where are we leaving this newsroom for? And for whom are we leaving it?
That's what I'm saying, that in general, look around yourself. As once again, that the general global shift, not just in Uganda, but the overall shift, advertisement that used to sustain the media is now shifting to Facebook and to Google. So the media has been affected. Sales of print papers in every country in the world practically have dropped. And then, so there's no longer advertising money in the media, which is why the newsrooms have dried up. And then, as I say, music itself, also affected by the internet, is now sort of like one where if you're not in your peak time and touring and holding concerts, you can't, as a musician in his 60s, gain revenue from what you recorded, let's say, 40 years ago by the sale of records and cassettes as it was 40 years ago. So look around yourself. everyone is struggling. You've seen all this. You go stand after this show, stand around, look at all these major hotels at around like 9 o'clock. Look at the number of lights. You see 20%, 15% room occupancy. All these new apartments in Nigeria and Tinda, wherever. Just look around. Huge new properties, new office blocks, room occupancy, the ground floor by your, whichever bank and up there. There's maybe one law firm. That's it. So the only place
I share so much.
Then you hear of salaries of MPs getting
has such a pessimistic view.
Let's go for a quick commercial break, and when we return, you'll tell him about his pessimism. Welcome back from that quick commercial break. My name is Derek Wandera. We go for this segment, and we want to try to advance this kind of conversation that we're having. And I still have Jimmy, I have Isaac and Timothy to try to diversify for us some of these topical issues. And I was, before we went for break, asking Isaac to try to tell us what exactly it is with Timothy's pessimism that he's always talking about. What is Timothy's pessimism here?
Timothy just portrays the way, I don't know how I can say it. He's talking about doomsday. Oh, now we are going to get into election, people are going to die, the stakes are going to be on all of that. And then I want to ask him, we have been very fortunate enough to have so many elections. 2006.
From 96.
From 96. 2006, and it was reflected in the decision of the Supreme Court, how tight that election was, and how violent it was with the Mambas and Besigye not being able to campaign and everything. Guess what? 2011 was rather very smooth sailing. 2011. Right? With the exception of inflation, which came after, right? It was rather very uneventful. That's when President Museveni appealed to the youth, did the you want another rap, and, the appeal was huge.
After
right?
pouring money into the economy.
He did pour it, but he did mop it up, That's the job of the central bank. And that time there was an issue of the notes. They introduced new notes and kept the old notes in the circulation. But I don't want to get into that economics. You see, there's another narrative that Timothy said, and it was to do with economics, that the country, once you see people moving from private...
From private
to government, and then you know that the economy is bad. And I said, look, that is not consistent with efficient and progressive government. Today, and he'll give you the example of Singapore. He likes to quote it here. Singapore, the highest paid individuals are in public office. The highest, the public service is highly paid. Go here to our small Rwanda. He doesn't want to mention it, but people generally, if you're moving, if an economy is moving, it tends to reward public servants a little better than the private sector. And it's just the narrative that the extreme capitalists have put in our mind. But once you look at those systems, whether it is in China, whether it is in, they tend to be balanced. And that's why I'm saying, look, as long as we are getting progressive, public servants will eventually be better paid. And people are genuinely seeing that, if I work in public service, I have pension, I have all these things that are the benefits that are not in the private sector, I will go there. Now, comes back to money in the politics and why people are rushing. Yes. One, I can also say that there's a general belief, a perception rather than a reality of there being money or politicians being paid exorbitantly. I have participated in an election, and I know for sure. I used to be those critics, like Chris Obore, who used to say MPs are overpaid, and all that stuff. And then I realized that an MP, the perception the public has of them, is that they are a government in itself. you know, at the constituency. They're expecting you to do all kinds of things, you know. So for me, I looked at even that 30 million that they get, and I said, you know what, we need to go back to the 6th Parliament model where they were given constituency development funds, such that those funds can also be accounted for, as long as it is clearly stated that an MP will do at least a project in his constituency, that he will come and requisition it from Parliament, and he will give account of that money. Whether it's a borehole, whatever, however, depending on the foolishness of your MP, that's okay. But in this area and era of let's give the MP the salary and he will, you know, it's just a competition for barrio. Like you become a barrio team.
You actually are speaking to very many Ugandans right now, because looking at the increment in the subscription money, or the money that you're supposed to pay for nominations, to become an MP, I think you're going to pay 3 million right now. Yeah, to actually get the flag, to contest for the flag in the primaries. And if you are 6 of you, then in your constituency running for the same flag, I mean, anywhere about like that's 18 million. And does that even explain why the elections have actually become so monetized? And this is an area, and this is something I want to bring to you, Jimmy. The monetization of elections in Uganda, and you could actually say across the world, has it been brought by some of these pull and pushes of economies, and what Isaac is talking about, saying that the electorate are actually asking more than you're supposed to deliver, and he's actually advocating for that constituency fund. Is this something you're thinking is a creation of our kind of politics, or is it just a creation of the mindset of the population and the electorate?
Yeah, it's a perception that there's a lot of money when you become a member of parliament.
It's not a perception. They just got 100 million here.
That is.
I don't.
You can't count on that money, because that is corruption. It's not.
But there's a lot of corruption in parliament, isn't there?
Okay. Look at someone who does this work well, has integrity, does not get
like who, for instance.
They're not meant.
So, I mean, if I get into the house, you should feel free to give me as an example.
I'm sure Isaac here won't accept to be bribed. So, the investment, people think there's a lot of money they earn, which is not really the case, because the burdens Isaac has been talking about, you have to provide, medical, you have to do this, tuition, attend this, but a commercialization of politics is not just a Ugandan thing. If you look across in Kenya, way more than here, and I think it's a global trend. I don't know what's driving it. Maybe because there are other jobs are not seen to be lucrative, and people think that's assured money when you get there. So you can invest as much as you can to get there, to get that money. But
I think Tim here has talked about it, and he has been explaining it, and saying that now the public jobs are more paying than the private ones. Because, for instance, let me give you an example of one person that I cannot accuse of corruption, and that is the recently elected Narukola. So you probably spent about 500 or 600 million in Kawempe.
There's no way.
Okay.
There's no way.
Okay. Whatever he spent.
Yes.
And within 3 weeks,
not
listen,
as an individual, but collectively as the party.
In 3 weeks,
even the party.
In 3 weeks, he's given a salary, 30 million. He's given 200 million for his car, and then. Maybe they are 100. Let's go for
that's a by-election.
And when we come back,
I wanted to explain.
we shall pick it up from there. KFM will come back from the quick commercial break. Isaac, we are back on air, and we have been in a very enchanted break where people are sharing as many ideas as possible. But I want to come to you, Tim, for this last segment as we close this discussion, for you to just help us try to create for us a picture of everything that's happening right now, from one camp to the other, from NRM, NUP, and FDC, PFF. You have DP, you have UPC that's trying to break away, to get a divorce. I actually have heard that DP is also trying to get a divorce from the NRM because they have tested the bitterness of their own medicine. What is at stake for the country? What is at stake for the country in terms of the economy? With this polarization of money into the economy and stuff, like what's at stake and what should Ugandans prepare for?
Well, as I said at the beginning, what's at stake is what you see. Usually where money goes is where interests are, and money is one of the best measures of actual interest beyond words and testimony. So, as I said, look at the structure. Well, I've been condemned by
just
Isaac,
but good.
I've been condemned by Isaac for being very pessimistic about things. People, very briefly before I answer you, can I have a bet with this Isaac here, and you two are the jury and the witnesses?
Just give me the bet. I'll keep it.
Yes, and I'll send Isaac statistics now based this Google data Mo is compiling, showing where Uganda stands in many fields online. The things you can actually measure right now beyond opinion polls you can dispute, but what people actually do online and all this, where Uganda ranks worldwide in various interests that measure sophistication, photography, credit cards, mobile money, forex, just a whole range of things. And then also, very importantly, the speeds, the build of Uganda's website, all these top websites you see, Monitor, Bank of Uganda, URA, and all these things. And I'll prepare the report and I'll copy it to you people, and then I
you take the money.
Yes. In other words, my pessimism is not based on my opinion or anger. Now, because of the person you introduced at the beginning, the quote-unquote enthusiasts of social media, I now have actual technical data all the time on me to tell. In fact, I'm almost more informed than even the Director General of the International Security Organization.
I would agree with him that he has told you he's going to get the Google Facts and share with you and everything. I would agree with him.
And let's make the bet about 800,000 shillings.
We will make the bet.
Let's put about 0.8, so I really win a free Easter.
1.6.
So listen, the information you have is what you go looking for. Let me give you an example. There are two numbers. There are two numbers. One, and I'll tell you, there were two newspapers that were publishing at the end of the year. One said the GDP per capita of Uganda is now 1,000.
1,000. 1,000, yes. Okay. 1,008 something, yeah.
GDP per capita is $1,000. Another one put in the headline, GDP, the debt to GDP ratio was... it was debt to GDP was what was the figure? I'm trying to forget.
Must have been like that. Something.
Debt per capita. Sorry,
yes,
not debt to GDP. It was debt per capita is
each
Ugandan is about $800, right? Now, all of them are speaking to the same thing. The perspectives they are bringing are absolutely different. One is saying each Ugandan earns 3 million shillings, 3.5, right? Another is saying every child who is born gets into debt of 2.4, even before they breathe their first. Like, that is the perspective. Now, for me, what I'm saying is, if I go into his Google Facts, I will get that pessimism that he pushes.
No, but I can also... But the same Google data, for example, if you ask me now, if let's say to answer directly, where does Uganda stand in Africa overall in a cross range of metrics, education, number of phones and all these things, newspapers per thousand?
Okay, so
the general picture, now to show you why I'm telling the facts are there, Uganda averagely ranks about, right now, is country number 13 in Africa.
Yes.
Taken all together, what you'd call crudely the strength of the country.
Yes,
so in other words, 13.
13
now 13. I would have said, if I was being pessimistic, I would have said it ranks number 40 out of the 55 countries.
No.
It's actually 13. So in other words, I'm trying to say that Uganda, as weak as it is, in fact, although of course a cynic would say, my goodness, if Uganda is number 13, what is country number 40?
I was about to ask you.
Yes.
There are 40-something countries behind us.
That is true. So in other words, I'm trying to show you that data...
Would you then say Uganda is so bad?
No. What I would answer for you is that, okay, Uganda ranks number, it's not a failed state, it ranks number 13 in Africa, but of course I would say, but bear in mind, Africa itself is not exactly like a Singapore or Canada or whatever.
But also the figures, for instance, you're quoting of the GDP per capita, those figures can never be real. They are assuming that every Ugandan...
yes, theoretically, yes. You know that...
but you know that that's not true. Then know that there's a Ugandan who doesn't get that money. It's because of the income inequality.
Agreed. Then don't also publish...
Per capita is an average of... everything divided by two.
My point is saying, then don't also quote the figure that says
glass half empty.
Half full and half empty.
Debt per capita. Then don't quote debt per capita if you say that we should not quote debt per GDP.
Okay, so GDP. One time, several years ago, I had an email discussion with Audrey Krabogo. All of you know him, and we're trying to discuss this question of the World Bank talks about, is it countries that have come from absolute poverty, from is it $1 a day to $1.5 per day and whatnot. Yes. And we discussed the China thing, and I said, you see, these figures of 1.5 per day, to a certain degree, okay, it's consoling that people have come, but when you really break down, let's call it 4,500 Uganda shillings per day, or let's say 5,000 per day. Okay, better than what it was, it was 2,000 per day, but for all the expenses, the school fees, the medicine, the transport, the airtime, everything that we deal with, what's the essential difference between being at $1 per day and $1.5 per day? So the argument I had, which Audrey said, hey, this is actually a good way of looking at it, is let's not be comforted by these World Bank figures, this minimum, we're provided the health centers around the country, then there's only Panadols and whatnot. To not really talk
Panado, but what is it called? Coatem.
Yes. So to talk of doing well in real terms, bear in mind the actual cost of living, we need to be talking worldwide, not just Uganda, of about $10 per day, okay, or $5 per day, $10 per day for you to really talk about meaningful change. So going back to your question, we're in a vulnerable country. We see all these girls going to the Middle East to work as maids. You can sense in the country the increasing number of people calling you, relatives asking for money and all that, the pressure that politicians are under, which even Isaac acknowledges here. Where Uganda is, as I've said many times in the Monitor, the days, like the one I discussed, the late Hope Kivenjere, Museveni's former press secretary, what we called the GDP growth of the 1990s was really just recovery as growth. We were making up for that deep hole Uganda had sunk into in that 70s, 80s period. So what you're doing is we were filling a pit latrine. Yes, growth is growth, but you are coming from negative 150 heading towards zero. And I think the zero part where what you call basic commodities became available, that was about 2008. And from there, now the challenge we're facing, which is why life is becoming difficult, is what you call net growth.
Yes.
Now that the cooking oil, the toothpaste, the sugar, the exercise books, the ballpoint pens are generally available across the country, now the actual growth based not on just filling in a hole, but taking steps forward. And that's why the politics, as I said, is now the only place where, yes, there's challenges, so many demands on your money, but there's no other place in the economy right now where you can have, even if it is that nominal figure of 30 million, 30 million is 30 million. Even if people come and bury you things, but they can't take all the 30 million. And so, like I said,
it's a very huge figure.
And as I said, the actions of people, musicians are supposed to be typically apolitical, and they should be earning that 30 million from their sales and concerts. When you see people, to answer your question, people are now leveraging the name. The name I make as Tim or as Derek, as whoever, is the one I now use to take me to the lucrative place. So if I am a musician, that name I've accumulated, that capital now is now to be taken to make money. If I'm a columnist in the papers or a talk show host, and I'll throw my hat into the ring, leveraging that name. So it's going to be that's why it's going to become very intense, very bitter, not just NRM versus the opposition parties, but even within the parties vying for the flag bearer.
I actually concur with you, but I don't know about being a show host and then throwing my hat in the...
Typical upcountry where a talk show host...
I wanted to... there's something you had thrown...
about your constituency.
Yes, I talk about my...
There's something that we digressed from the election about money.
In 30 seconds.
Yeah, in 30 seconds. I think for me, we need to get into a system where we understand that political parties need to raise money. If getting into paying for these political contests is one way that the political parties collect or receive money, because they are eventually going to have to run their programs, I mean, there's no problem with it. But that's one thing. The political parties get money. But the second thing is to also kind of curtail... there has to be a threshold that controls the numbers of people who are seeking political office. Now, if you finish all your money in nomination, right? Yeah, and then there has to be something different than the usual that we have.
But you shouldn't use money to stop other people.
No, look, it may not be desirable, but it is necessary. At this point, if you are saying you're using S6 results and everybody has an S6 certificate, I mean, there has to be some other measure.
Someone this morning was telling me on another platform that if a president of the country cannot afford to get 20 million, and you're going to control 72 trillion of our budget, then what kind of person are you? What kind of president are you going to be?
I honestly feel that, look, the money should not be, if the political party has decided that this is the money that they...
I think there's a president who wants it to be put at 100 billion or even 500.
Yes, unfortunately, that's all the time we had for this show, and we shall be going to wait for the next weekend. My name is Derek Wander. I've had Jamie, Isaac, and Timothy trying to dissect for us the issues that happened this. As I leave, I want to say thank you, UEDCL, because I got my power, and my people in my village have gotten power today, and they are all happy. And I know the next time I go back there, they will be like, thank you very much, our son. But all thanks goes to UEDCL. Thank you very much. Good weekend and happy Easter to everyone. And let's meet next Friday on the same show with even a better panel and better topics to do.